What does it take to build a nation? Is it won with blood and sacrifice on the battlefield? Or is it bought, with ink and gold, in a quiet room half a world away? This is the story of a deal so vast, so audacious, it defied the imagination. It doubled the size of a young republic with the stroke of a pen. But it was also a gamble that threatened to tear that very republic apart before it even found its feet. This is the story of a president, a philosopher at heart, who was forced to make a decision that went against everything he believed. This is the story of the Louisiana Purchase. Host: to understand the gamble, we have to go back. Picture the United States in 1801. It's a fragile thing, just a generation removed from revolution. A thin strip of states clinging to the eastern seaboard, its western border, the Mississippi River. Beyond that, mystery, immense possibility, and immense danger. And for the farmers and traders in places like Kentucky and Tennessee, the Mississippi was their lifeblood. It was the only way to get their goods to market. And at the mouth of that mighty river, controlling the vital port of New Orleans, was a European power, Spain. It was a tense but manageable relationship. Then, in 1802, a bombshell. News reached Washington City. Spain had secretly ceded the massive territory of Louisiana back to France. And the man now holding the deed was the most feared and brilliant military leader in the world, Napoleon Bonaparte. Host: imagine the terror. Thomas Jefferson, now president, saw the nightmare scenario unfolding. Napoleon, a conqueror, wasn't interested in fur traps and wilderness. He wanted an empire, a French empire in North America, with New Orleans as its crown jewel. He could, at any moment, choke off American trade, strangle the Western settlers, and box the United States in forever. Jefferson wrote, and you can hear the fear in his words, "There is on the globe one single spot, the possessor of which is our natural and habitual enemy. It is New Orleans now." Thomas Jefferson was a man of profound contradictions. He was a staunch defender of individual liberty, yet a slave owner. He believed in a limited federal government, in a strict interpretation of the Constitution. The document, he argued, gave the federal government only the powers it explicitly stated, and nowhere did it say the president could buy foreign territory. But faced with this crisis, the philosopher had to become a pragmatist. He decided to try diplomacy. He sent his friend, James Monroe, to Paris. Their instructions were simple. Try to buy New Orleans and West Florida. Offer up to $10 million. If Napoleon refuses, well, the instructions hinted at a desperate, unthinkable alternative. Seek an alliance with the British, America's old enemy. It was a Hail Mary pass, and Monroe set sail across the Atlantic into the heart of the French Empire, not knowing he was walking into one of the most shocking twists of fate in American history. Back in Washington, Jefferson waited. The tension was unbearable. Meanwhile, in Paris, the American envoys, Robert Livingston and the newly arrived Monroe, were getting nowhere. The French foreign minister, Talleyrand, was a master of deception, and he gave them nothing. They were frustrated, dejected. They saw their mission and America's future crumbling before their eyes. But a continent away, Napoleon's dreams were also crumbling. Napoleon had sent a massive army to crush a slave revolt in the sugar-rich colony of Saint-Domingue, but his troops were being decimated, not just by rebel forces, but by yellow fever. His vision of a new world empire was slipping through his fingers. And on the horizon, another storm was gathering. War with Great Britain was imminent. Napoleon knew he couldn't defend Louisiana from the British Navy. It would be taken from him anyway. So, he made a calculation. A cold, ruthless, brilliant calculation. The scene must have been surreal. The American envoys, there to beg for a city, were asked a question that would change everything. Talleyrand, in his sly way, asked, "What will you give for the whole?" Livingston thought he'd misheard. The whole? The whole of Louisiana? A territory so vast it was still largely unmapped, stretching from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains? It was like asking a man who came to buy a single apple if he'd like to purchase the entire orchard. Napoleon wasn't just selling New Orleans, he was selling an empire. And here was the moment of ultimate crisis for Jefferson's ideals. This was the gamble. His envoys had just been handed the deal of the millennium, but to take it, Jefferson would have to betray his core belief in a limited government. The Constitution said nothing about this. What was he to do? Wait for a constitutional amendment? That could take months, even years. Napoleon was impatient and mercurial. The deal could vanish in an instant. So, Thomas Jefferson, the strict constructionist, made a decision. He decided to interpret. He would justify the purchase under the president's treaty-making power. It was a stretch, and he knew it. He called it an act beyond the Constitution, but necessary for the nation's security, prosperity, and ultimate destiny. He would wrestle with the guilt later. For now, he would act. On April 30th, 1803, the deal was struck. The United States purchased over 828,000 square miles of land for about $15 million. That's less than 3 cents an acre. Think about that for a second. The land that would become all or part of 15 new states: Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Minnesota. For less than the cost of a modern aircraft carrier, it was an unbelievable steal. But every gamble has a cost, and the Louisiana Purchase, for all its glory, had a deep and painful legacy. First, the people who already lived there. For the dozens of Native American nations who called this land home, the Osage, the Sioux, the Comanche, the Mandan, this wasn't a purchase. It was a transaction between two foreign powers who had never asked them, never consulted them. It was the beginning of the end of their sovereign control over their ancestral lands, a tragedy that would unfold over the next century. And then, there was the issue of slavery. The new territory immediately ignited a fierce debate. Would it be slave or free? This argument, sparked by Jefferson's gamble, would fester and grow, leading directly to the Missouri Compromise, to Bleeding Kansas, and ultimately to the Civil War. The very expansion meant to secure the Union almost destroyed it. Host. So, what are we to make of Jefferson's gamble? It was an act of breathtaking vision. It unlocked the promise of America, creating the notion of a continent-spanning nation. It gave us the land that would become the breadbasket of the world. It fueled the idea of manifest destiny, for better and for worse. It made America, America. But it was also an act of profound hypocrisy, one that set the stage for generations of conflict and suffering. That is the complexity of history. It's not a simple story of good and evil. It's a story of impossible choices, of leaders grappling with crises in real time, of progress stained with moral compromise. Thomas Jefferson took a chance. He looked at a map and saw not just what was, but what could be. He bet the future of his ideals on the future of his nation, and in doing so, he set in motion the very engine of American expansion, an engine of incredible opportunity and of immense consequence. The ink dried, the money was paid, and a young republic, in one single moment, woke up to find itself an empire. The question of whether that was a triumph, a tragedy, or more truthfully, a painful and necessary mix of both, is a question we are still grappling with today. What do you think? Was it a masterstroke or a moral failure? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, this is USA Inquire. Stay curious.